To get an accurate weight, take off the leash and use the same equipment every day. Record the weight and time on your chart. Ease her weight down by about 10% over a week by feeding small amounts of low-energy food. Now she should be more receptive, and we can use food rewards as positive reinforcement. She's not fed any casting and is hooded when not being handled and when indoors. The hunting falcons are placed out on the lawn when they're not hunting and the weather permits. This helps to reawaken their hunting instincts and gives them a chance to adjust to the new environment.
The safe way of picking up Giroudi from the perch to your glove. With this procedure, at no time is the hawk untied. People will tell you, oh, put it in some lock position. But if you fumble and slip, the falcon can escape with just her jesses and the swivel on, which will be fatal. Instead, do it like this. Tie your glove to the top part of the swivel with a falconer's knot. You've got a falconer's knot tied to her. Now you can pick her up. Now undo the leash. Now the leash could just as well be a traditional leash with knots, but this is a loop leash. So undo your loop leash. Okay, now through the whole procedure she stayed tied on.
Traditional falconers often coil the leash around their fingers, but in so doing you run a real risk of disaster. You only need to trip whilst climbing a gate or stumble on a stone, and your bird is gone with equipment trailing. For certain your bird will be caught up in a tree or on a fence, and by the time you've tracked her down, it might already be too late. This time the hawk was recovered, but this kestrel was not so lucky. The next link in the chain is for a Giroudi to associate jumping to the fist with a reward. Giroudi is initially reluctant to jump. Let her get hold of the rabbit, and by a gentle tug of war, she should step onto the glove. She soon gets the idea and jumps a leash length to the fist. Learn to carry her smoothly on the fist, just as if she was a full cup of tea. At the beginning of the second week, both falcons are feeding from the glove and are making noticeable daily progress. They are now ready to be introduced to new sights and sounds. This is a good opportunity to reinforce lessons previously learnt during early training. 20 minutes of positive reinforcement is better than 3 hours of the bird wishing it was somewhere else. If something alarming appears, hood her until it's passed. It could be anything from a tractor or a bicycle to overenthusiastic children. Once the situation has passed, unhood her and feed her a reward to regain her composure. Gradually, she should feed unhooded during alarming circumstances. This is all part of her manning. When training a hawk that will be used in woodland, such as a passage goshawk, it is a good idea to link a whistle with feeding on the fist. Mr. Lee in China will later use this technique to call his passage goshawk out of trees. Never fly your hawk loose with swivel or leash attached, as Nick has just been asked to do. Now is also a good time to get the birds used to cars and travelling. All hawks nowadays need to travel well. Be very careful when closing doors that she does not open her wings at the last moment and get caught. If you don't use a hood, you can tempt the birds into the box with a titbit.
Okay, Arthur, so you reckon Gerudi's ready to be introduced to the lure?
I think so.
Okay, we're going to do this just here in the garden. We'll get the lure, garnish it with meat, chuck it down in front of Gerudi, and just let her see the meat and the lure together, and she'll build up an association between meat which she knows and the lure which she doesn't know. Alright? Now to do that, we're going to have to put her on a creance, and we won't call her from the block. Never call a falcon from her block more than the length of her leash. As far as she's concerned, mentally, this block only goes that far. Don't expect her to go that far, because she'll say, I can't. Or, if she does it once, next time you put her on a short leash, she'll be baiting off thinking she should be able to go further.
Right.
So what we'll do is we'll put you on the block and her on your fifth.
Okay.
All right? Let's see your lure then. Okay, so you've got a crow wing lure, and at the front you've got two ties. Okay, you could have another kind of clip, but the old traditional 2 bits of string are quite good. Got some meat. Alright, so we'll just do a reef knot. And I haven't tied it too tight. Now, for this exercise, it doesn't matter if this meat comes off the lure, because basically she's going to sit there and eat the whole piece of meat right here. Right? You're not going to be swinging the lure around. If you were going to swing the lure around, you must get a much tougher piece of meat, because this will fall off immediately. Right?
Okay.
You need a piece of meat with a bone in or some tough skin, whatever, not just a little piece of meat like this. But this will do for this exercise. So you've got your lure ready. Now you've got to put her on the creance. Don't put that back in your bag, just put it there. You don't want the meat to get dirty. Okay, now first of all, pick her up from the block. That's right. Now our next problem is we have the creance, we've got to attach it to the hawk, right? And we want to do that without releasing the bird. And we're outside, she could just fly completely off. So what we do is, we take the creance, and we poke the creance through the slits of the jesses. Right, like this. Then we tie a sheet bend. Now a sheet bend is just a simple loop above where you put it through, like this. Now the reason we tie a sheet bend is that if she was to bait hard, this could cut through the jesses. After that you can tie your falcon's knot. And I always tie a couple. Now she's securely attached to your croons. What are you going to do with the other end of this?
Attach it to something that isn't going to move. My bag.
Yeah, I'll tell you how I do it. What I do is, I tuck it through my belt loop and stick it in my bag.
Okay.
Alright? Just make sure you've got enough for the exercise you want. Okay. So the hawk's secure. So you can untie her from your glove. You can remove the swivel. Of course, you're never flying a hawk loose with slitted jesses.
Having checked the creance and prepared the lure, Arthur unhoods Gerudi, shows her the lure with its meat, and tosses it onto the ground in front of her. Now Gerudi is understanding that the lure comes from Arthur and has food on it. When Gerudi has eaten all the meat on the lure, Arthur makes in with a pickup piece of meat. Gerudi is learning to step up off the lure back to Arthur. This step is just as important as her coming to the lure. We are forming links in a chain of behaviour. Later, when Gerudi is confidently flying free, we shall stop garnishing the lure with meat, but Gerudi will have linked it to Arthur and his pickup piece and will happily leave the lure for his fist. Now that Gerudi is ready to fly longer distances, start calling her off from a fence post or from a friend's fist. Arthur is using a crow wing lure for Gerudi. Short lure swings are all that is required initially. Always present the lure to the side of you and never directly in front. Leave the lure on the ground for her to feed from before picking her up. We must now teach her to catch the lure in the air by winding the lure line onto a light stick or by holding it at arm's length. If at first she won't take the lure in the air, don't lay it on the floor for her to feed from, or she'll learn to expect this. Hold the lure a little above and in front of her until she pulls it down. She should learn to do this very quickly, and usually only 1 or 2 lessons are required. Don't try and rush your training. A short, productive lesson is much better than one which goes wrong. Gradually, you can build up to swinging the lure for her to catch in the air in front of you, and then to swinging the lure and letting it land behind you to encourage her to follow through. Captive-bred falcons arrive in the Middle East in early September, when the daytime temperatures are still too high to train falcons. Here we see falconers in the Emirates training their birds at night time under floodlights. These are hybrid falcons which were hacked in the UK, and the birds are very similar to the passage birds which the Middle East falconers are used to training. Captive-bred, hacked falcons compare favourably with wild-caught sakers and peregrines, whilst reducing pressure on wild populations. Their training principles are the same. Again, they use a lure made from the wings of their intended quarry. There is little chance of the creance catching on anything in the desert, and so much greater distances can be flown with the creance still attached. Never use fishing line as a substitute for a good braided pteroline creance. Waiting on flights are discouraged here because of the type of quarry. The traditional quarry for Arab falconers are stone curlew and houbara bustard, and for such species an immediate response from the fist is required, and chases commonly cover several kilometers. Khalifa Saif is hawking stone curlew in its typical desert habitat. This species migrates south through the Arabian Peninsula in September and passes through a second time in February on its return migration. In Arabia it is called karawan, and tiercel peregrines, or tiba, are often the falcons of choice. In Arabia, one rarely has to plan training schedules around the weather, but in England it is raining. Arthur is eager to fly Gerudi free, but cannot fly her outside. So instead, he is teaching her to high jump. Use a platform on the floor made up of something soft, such as a sack or a horse rug. Prepare yourself as many pieces of meat as you think you'll need. Cut small pieces. Rabbit is ideal, because it is light, and you can give her a good crop of food without throwing her out of condition. If you've forgotten about food quality, refer back to the first video in this series, Nutrition. Both falconer and falcon have now progressed, and different aspects of the training are now becoming second nature. Picking up, tying and untying safely, attaching créances, hooding up, are now routine. Don't become lazy and try and take shortcuts. Even though indoors, we still use the créance. Like Mr. Lee, Arthur whistles to condition Gerudi to fly when called. You will notice that Arthur turns away and starts again if she isn't fully interested. Continuing to call when she doesn't jump will only teach her to sit when called. Again, look for an immediate response to what you're trying to teach her. If her response is not immediate, then she needs more work before flying free. A bird such as Gerudi will jump at least 20 times, and fit falcons may jump 100 plus times in a session. They quickly learn this form of training, which is excellent for fitness as well as reinforcing coming to the fist and the bond with the falconer. Using a padded platform protects her feet. Using a wooden block or a stone will bruise them. We will cover this technique in more detail in a later film, but meanwhile Arthur has not wasted the day. The next day is more promising. Everything is ready. We've put 2 transmitters on Gerudi for added security and checked the signals. We use cords on the glove, which we can thread through the anklet and slip over a finger to secure her once the jesses have been removed. At no time should the bird be loose while she's still hooded. Remove one jess, thread one cord through the anklet and over a finger. Then remove the second jess and thread the other cord through and over a finger. Prior to release, slacken the hood braces, remove one loop from a finger and keep it tight between the fingers. Remove the second loop and keep tight. Now you can unhood her. Her first free flight. She leaves the glove and goes straight to the lure. Well, she managed that without a problem. We fly her several more times, increasing the distance slightly and deliberately making her overshoot to get her to turn back to the lure. The only thing which attaches her is the conditioning she's learned through habituation and training. Once the drag of the créance is off, a bird flies faster and can panic, being unable to break. Let her catch the lure in the air as it passes behind you and before it hits the ground. Allow her to make an increasing number of passes, giving her the lure in the air at the end of each flight. Over the next few days and weeks, she'll learn a lot more without the hindrance of a créance. You can teach her to chase the lure, and for falcons where you are not encouraging a waiting on flight, flying between two people is a great way to exercise falcons. Notice how the lure is hidden from sight as soon as the falcon has passed, and she quickly learns how to play this game. Now that she's flying free, both Arthur and Gerudi start to build confidence in her response and flying ability. Martin, meanwhile, has made steady progress with the peregrine Sibella. She followed the same training pattern as Gerudi, but Martin is using a pheasant wing lure, since this is her intended quarry. Some birds learn more quickly than others. Just like humans, they're all individuals. By understanding a particular bird's strengths and weaknesses, you can put more effort into those areas of her behavior when required, and so get the most out of your bird. Unlike Gerudi, Sibella is not encouraged to chase lures swung between two people, and lure flying in this way discourages falcons to gain height above the falconer, waiting for pheasant or grouse to be served below her. As soon as she's flying free, we'll start teaching her to wait on. Sibella is showing all the signs that she will soon be a competent game hawk. Pippa has used exactly the same training techniques for Gripper the Harris hawk, right up to the point of introducing the lure and flying free. Harris hawks give an initial impression of being quite lazy, and the falconer can be lulled into an easy routine, with the falconer being trained by the hawk rather than the other way around. Given correct conditioning and plenty of fitness training, they really prove themselves in the field. Gripper is hooding well, travelling okay, and has gone through the stages of flying various distances on a créance from posts, walls and fences. She's been introduced to dogs and knows all about chasing